Bobby Witt Jr., thanks for joining us, man.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
There's a lot of debate about travel ball.
You don't need to be paying all this money to go and do this thing. You're going to get seen.
What's your advice to parents as they watch their girls or boys go through their journey?
They see there's this team. They got all these commits. We want my kid on that team, even if he's not playing.
Straight from high school to professional baseball. What's the learning curve there?
The biggest thing for me is just how much preparation goes into being a professional baseball player.
The biggest problem in baseball is going to be arm problems.
The guy that does a lot of the Tommy John surgeries, and he said the high school level and younger is crazy the amount of surgeries that they do.
How kids should approach developing the mental aspect of the game.
They say good hitters go game to game, great hitters go at bat to at bat, and the best go pitch to pitch.
Before we get to the podcast, if you have middle school or high school kids that play sports and you don't want to fundraise like me, we got you covered. My buddy Chris Carneal owns Booster. Chris?
We help schools and sports teams raise funds in a super fun and engaging way. In fact, the last 22 years, we've raised $750 million, and we can't wait to help you. Choose booster.com.
Welcome back to Pure Athlete. I'm Jeff. I'm going to bring you into first today.
Thank you.
Brad
Appreciate it.
and Britt, since you were late sending the link to our next guest.
You don't have to tell all the stuff.
But you guys, I'm excited about this. You know, I spent 3 years in Kansas City playing for the Royals, and it's a special place led by Dayton Moore and, of course, J.J. Picola taking over now. And they have a young kid that came up and has done pretty good.
He's good.
Pretty good. Yeah, he's done some good things there. But more than just baseball, I mean, I've talked to Dayton and JJ, the team leader he is, the type of guy he is in the clubhouse, pushes his guys to be better. And it was no better evidence today. They got back to the playoffs this year, second in the AL MVP, and won the AL batting title. Bobby Witt Jr., thanks for joining us, man.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
So first, we'll get to it. I know baseball is an important thing, but you got something big coming up pretty soon, huh?
Yes, the wedding in about a week from Saturday. So, yeah, really, really excited about that. My pretty much high school sweetheart, I guess you say, almost been dating for 8 years now. So really excited just to kind of make it official.
Yep, that
Congrats.
was me. Followed me. Me and Katie dated in high school, and I think I turned out all right.
Couple decades ago.
First of all, I love that he called you sir. You pick up on that now that you're 40? I mean,
It's a little gray in the beard.
he knows that I'm going to be announces in his games in the playoffs, and, he wants me to talk great about him. I don't think I'm going to have to.
I meant it more like just your age.
Oh, well, because I'm 40. I'm old now, but Bobby, we look at your year that you've had, and I know it's incredible. But kind of what was it like for you to bring the Kansas City Royals? I know I was kind of, played with Gordo and Haas and all the guys, but, you had a lot of weight on your shoulders, man. They signed you to that big deal, but to be able to get back to the playoffs and not only do that, but really take the Yankees toe-to-toe for 4 games.
Yeah, pretty much the ultimate goal going into last offseason was we wanted to win, and we lost 100 games the year before. And so it's like, all right, what do we need to do to make the next step? And there's always that conversation about wanting to stay in Kansas City, the long-term deal and everything. But my ultimate goal is wanted to win. And if I wanted to win, I wanted to win in Kansas City. So once they started making those moves, going after those pitchers, I'm like, this is great. We got the team. And even the year that we lost over 100 games, the team was there. It's just kind of everyone was trying to get a feel for the big leagues, getting their feet wet and everything. And then everyone kind of started to get a little more established. And then figuring that out, and I think I was like, all right, this is right where I want to be, because Kansas City fans, I'm sure they're amazing, and then what they're doing across the street with the Chiefs is just special. And I'm like, all right, they're doing it in red, now I want to do it in blue. So that's the ultimate goal, and it still is. But yeah, it was a special year, and I think it's just kind of a taste of what we can potentially keep doing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree. You see that shot of back when they won the World Series and all those fans packed in, man. Like those are the 2 sports up there, and they support them.
Great
baseball
town.
Quite a run for the city.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's cool. Let's, Bobby, let's jump right in. We want to jump into your youth sports story a little bit, which, we kind of love this because you're not that far removed from playing travel ball and all those types of things that a lot of kids in our audience and parents in our audience are dealing with today. So maybe just to start off, can you kind of give us a little bit of background on, where you grew up and when you started playing sports and what sports you played?
Yeah, 100%. So grew up here in Texas, and so born and raised, but it's kind of funny. My dad's from Massachusetts, mom's from Oklahoma, but since my dad played for the Rangers for a while, like Texas stuck. But youth baseball for me, I was always blessed just because my dad played, and we're always fortunate enough I was able to go have the equipment that I needed, be able to do whatever. But then just kind of growing up in Texas, it was starting up at 6 years old. Baseball was a big thing. And so I probably started a little bit before then, but just really started at like kind of like the local group, and which here in Colleyville, that's where I grew up, born and raised from. And so we kind of had like a little travel, not really a travel ball team, but like a local team, and did that for a couple of years. And I think once I got to age like 8 or 9, that's when I joined a DBAT team, and it started to become like, I started to see like, wow, this is pretty serious. Going to tournaments, there's 100 teams in tournaments, and just going out there and playing. And then got on this one team, made it to the finals, and then we had coaches going at it, and I'm like, oh wow, this is and then growing up, my dad was always my coach, and then Rusty Greer, and then his son Mason, we all played together growing up. And so it was really cool just to have 2 big leaguers always in the dugout with us, kind of teaching us more so the fundamentals than anything, just trying to play the game the right way, just doing the fundamentals right, doing the little things right. So I think that your natural athletic ability will take over after that. You got to start with kind of a base core foundation. And I feel like I've been, like I said earlier, I was just so blessed with the opportunity with having those big leaguers around. Like my dad retired in 2001, so I was never really around the clubhouse, but I was able to kind of get taught how to play the game at such a young age. And I think that's the biggest thing for a young kid nowadays, is just because there's so much stuff on social media and everything where kids can get led the wrong way with literally just on social media. And so it's just kind of getting taught the way to play the game at a young age was awesome. And then just from there, going from like, I think 11 when we were 11 was our first tournament. We went like out of the state, and then started traveling more. And then the summers were crazy, like traveling, everything. And like I said, I was just fortunate enough to be able to kind of travel to those tournaments and go to places that you never think. You're going 13 years old, you're going to play in Florida, 11 years old, going to Colorado, and those type of things. So it was really cool. My childhood baseball was amazing. And I'm still buddies with all those people that I played with. So it's really cool, especially here in Texas.
Bobby, at what age, I ask this question a lot to our guests, but at what age did you sit there and go, I may be able to play in college, not even the pros, but what age did you sit there and go, God, I think I could be pretty dang good at this? So you had your dad, obviously, and his experience, but when did that realization hit you?
Yeah, I think that was, I can remember like the date, not the date, but like we were in like a perfect game tournament in Georgia at one of the, can't remember what it was called. The
Lake Point and Emerson there probably. Yeah.
Lake,
we all know here.
And so we're out there. I can't remember if we were 13 or 15. I think it was 13. And then one of the guys, and then that's when like kind of college coaches were starting to come, and you're like, wow, we're 13 years old. We got coaches coming around. And then I think I hit a home run one of the games, and we're using wood bats. It was our first like real wood bat tournament. And then next day hit another home run. I'm like, all right, more coaches are starting to come around. And then one of our guys hit, I think 90 on the mound, or 90, whatever it was, something crazy at that age. And then it was like, at that point, then those like the perfect game rankings came out, and it was like, all right, me, like I didn't do a lot of the stuff kind of at really young age, but then 13, 14, whatever it was. And then it was like, all right, I'm in the top 10. And now, but like, I was always like growing up, like, oh, those don't mean anything until you prove them. They're just guys that are writing down the rankings, doing this and that just because you had a good game, whatever. So now it's like, that's a little bit more motivation to me, where it's like, now I want to, next step is college baseball from where I'm at, or high school, but then college. And then, so I committed to the University of Oklahoma when I was, I think 15. So yeah, that 13U tournament was really that when I was like, all right, I can probably go play college. And then going into my freshman year, I committed to University of Oklahoma.
So before high school, you committed to Oklahoma before you even started high school?
I was like, it was the fall of 2015, I think. So it was like I was going into my freshman year of high school. But like that was after like the summer before, like going out to Lake Point and doing all that. So I can't remember if I was 15. I think it might have been that summer I was 15 or something. But
I was going to say, you probably spent a lot of time in Atlanta those few summers.
Oh yeah. It was every year we had it circled on the calendar. I think we'd just spend like a week out there. And then so
What did you play basketball, football, anything else growing up when you were younger?
when I was really young, I played basketball, but I always did football and baseball until my sophomore year of high school. But really, like I tell people this, like when I was sixth or fifth grade was my first year of like tackle football, but I always grew up playing 7-on-7 and flag just because I just love football. I love being outside running and scoring touchdowns and this and that. But like when I was in middle school, I was like, all right, I'm going to go to Oklahoma and play football and baseball because like at that time, I think Kyler Murray might have been doing that and everything.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I want to play receiver and do this. And like ultimately, like football, I was like, I love football, but I hated practice. I hated going to like the football practice and everything, but I love the games and I love just kind of going out there and being able to just go out and run. And so like, but then in Texas after freshman year and going into sophomore year, I was like, football is kind of crazy. Just it's a year-round sport. And I knew that there's opportunities with USA baseball coming up. And I knew that was in the fall. And that was probably one of my, like, to this day, one of my hardest decisions of like, kind of, I guess, retiring from football, you could say. But it was just, I was like, at first my mom was more excited. My dad was like, really, you're quitting and this and that. And so it was just one of those things, but then in middle school, I ran track too, just tried to do something always during every point just to try to stay athletic. And I think that's really what's helped me become kind of where I'm at, just trying to be the best athlete I can, is just playing those multiple sports and not getting caught up and getting washed too early in baseball or football, whatever it is.
Bobby, I'm going to guess with Friday Night Lights in Texas, I'm going to guess your high school football coach with your speed was pretty disappointed when you decided to quit.
Yeah, 100%. Because I had like my freshman year, I like got called up during playoffs for one varsity, and I think I was on a kickoff, and I was like, dang, these dudes are big. But then next year, I do the whole fall training after we got eliminated that first round, and then I was like, went in his office, and it was just kind of tears in my eyes. I'm like, wow, I didn't think it would be this big of a thing. But then after the baseball season, spring, hey, you want to come out? Because I punted too. And he's like, you want to come out and punt? And then it'd be like the next year, hey, you just want to come out and punt? You don't have to come to practice, this and that. I'm like, if I go out and punt, the odds of me just punting from the team, it's not going to happen. I want to go out. And then like my sophomore year, seeing my buddies on varsity and stuff playing, I'm like, dang, this hurts. Not doing it, but.
It's kind of like Austin Riley.
Austin Riley, but Austin Riley, you would have thought was going to be a defensive end. He was a punter in high school and going. I remember thinking like Austin. It's funny though, you talk about Colleyville High School. So in 2010, when I was with the Rangers, we went to the World Series. I rented Frank Calinato's house.
Oh yeah,
in Colleyville, and so
what's crazy about that is I think Rusty Greer, they rented his house too when they were renovating. So I've been to that house.
Have you? Yeah. So
I know exactly where it is.
Yeah. So I lived there, and we had a Friday night between game 3 and 4 of the ALCS, or game 2 and 3 of the ALCS. And I'm a big high school football guy, right, in Georgia, and I wanted to see what Texas was all about. So on an off night, my wife was like, "You're taking me to a high school football game instead of dinner." But we went and saw Colleyville play, dude. And there was like 15,000 people there, and I remember thinking like,
I think that might have been 2000. That would have been my brother-in-law would have been the quarterback, Cody Thomas.
Oh, I'm sure I saw him. I mean, that place was slammed.
He was committed to Oklahoma to play football, and he ended up doing football and baseball both. And that married my sister, and so kind of small world right there.
Yeah, so let's talk about that dynamic for a minute. 3 older sisters.
Yes,
yeah, who all married MLB guys.
Who all married athletes.
Yeah, all after last year, every one of us played in the big league, so it was pretty special. Like those Thanksgiving and Christmas dinners are a lot of fun. We try to stay away from baseball, but then it always comes back around. We're always talking about baseball. And my dad told all my sisters, never marry a baseball player. The lifestyle is crazy. All 3 of them. So yeah, it's awesome though.
How was that? Let's talk a little bit about that dynamic. Your 3 sisters, your mom and dad, though, growing up, like, how were you? I know your dad was a big influence on you, but did they push you? Were they hard? Somewhere in the middle? How did that whole dynamic work?
Yeah, my dad, he always pushed me to be, because it wasn't more so like the physical errors or whatever happened, but it was more the mental mistakes that I would make kind of growing up. That's when he really got on me, and my mom would have to kind of, some of the card rides home, there was a lot of yelling, a lot of stuff. My mom had to kind of break it up a little bit, but and then that comes to show you my mom. She was kind of like that glue, that rock to like our family and everything, which makes it so special that we have. Like, I know a lot of like our relationship with our family is great. Like we all live around each other. We're still just Christmas, church on Sundays, we'll all go meet up and everything. So it's just really kind of fortunate with that. But yeah, just with having my mom there, she always kind of kept it in between, but also she was more so the one that you would yell at umpires and get on. She's probably been to more baseball games than anyone, just with my dad playing and then going to all my games now and everything. So it's really, and she knows the game too. And she'll be like, man, that was terrible, this and that. So it's pretty funny to hear her talk about the game. But then the 3 older sisters, they always knew like I was pretty good at what I did. And so they always just like kind of root for me and just had a good support system. And so I think that was the biggest thing. But yeah, my mom and dad, my dad always pushed me and my mom always wanted me to just kind of work hard and be humble and make sure I was just good in class and everything. And so, yeah.
You know, we got a lot of parents that are listening that coach their kids, obviously, me included. Now I coach mine. What were a couple of things that that your dad did that you loved? Obviously, not just coaching you, but being your father too at the same time.
Yeah, it was just being able to kind of talk about the game, talk about things. And that was like a lot of times, not only like we would talk about our game, but we would watch a game on TV and just talk about it. And that's what was just so special with our relationship. We always can just talk about the game and learn just by watching. And that's what he always told me, like, you can learn so much just by paying attention to the game. That's why he says, like, in the dugout, even like when I was in high school and going to a college game or whatever it was, you can just learn so much by watching the game because you never know, something new might happen in the game of baseball. And so, which was, I always kind of took to heart, and just being in the big leagues now, just watching the game and not like there's iPads in the dugout, and on that,
yes.
or whatever. Just, you learn so much, pitchers' tendencies or what a position player is doing or whatever it is. And so that was kind of something that I think that was just big for me, is just, we always just talked about the game, watched the game, and just kind of learned in that aspect of it.
I love that too, because towards the end of my career, the iPad started coming out, and I always said, Chipper Jones, man, he would sit on that step. Freddie Freeman does the same thing now, and they just watch. You know, all these other guys are in the iPad, and I always said it, man, it's such a difference. I commend you for that, because like you said, there are a lot of people, man, they go right in that dugout, and it's to that iPad.
No, yeah, I get guilty of it too sometimes, but more so like if it's a bad call and I want to make sure it's a bad call.
Yeah, well, that's okay.
I can't say anything on that, but yeah.
Bobby, you you went straight from high school to professional baseball. Tell us, for us, folks that didn't play professional baseball like Jeff and you, like what's the learning curve there? I mean, even I know obviously you went straight to the minor leagues and spring training thing. What hit you? What was the first thing that hit you? You're like, wow, this is a different level.
Yeah, really, the biggest thing for me was just realizing not like what hit me, but just know that it's the same game I grew up playing my whole entire life. Like, yes, it's professional baseball, but it's like that was my dream, and that's something that I always wanted to do. And I knew that if I just put my heart and mind to it, then this is something I'll try to be successful at. And I think just the biggest thing for me is just how much preparation goes into being a professional baseball player. It's not only like, all right, you got to get like, you get there so much earlier before a game than going to high school game. You get there an hour before the game and you show up, you play catch, and you're good to go. You got show up, you work out, you eat, do like mental training is now a huge part of the game. And I think it's one of the biggest parts of the game too. And just that side of the game. And then also just like getting ready for 7:05, what for you will get you ready for the game time, whatever it is. And I think that was the biggest thing for me, is just being able to kind of get into a good routine and be able to prepare myself, not only just to get ready for the game, but make sure that my body is perfectly ready for that, whatever time the game is. Because it's sometimes like my first year, even in the big leagues, I got caught up in like hitting BP every day and going out and like trying to get ground balls every day, trying to press the coaches, this and that. Whereas like, and then 7:10 comes around and I'm like, dang, I'm a little bit tired. Maybe I should have done this. And then now my second year, I'm like, all right, trying to figure out a routine. And then this past year, it's like, all right, I got to make sure I'm locked in with ground balls. What do I need to do this day? Maybe one day I just do my side work. And then maybe one day I don't have to take that many swings in the cage, where I can just hit right before the game, get on the machine and do whatever I need to do. And so I think that was really like the biggest thing from going from high school to professional baseball, was just finding that routine, making sure I'm prepared for the game, not for whenever BP is or whatever it is.
Hey, Bobby, I'm going to back up a little bit. And, there's a lot of debate today about travel ball and about it starting super early and kids playing year round, and you've just come out of all that, fairly recently. As you look back, what are your thoughts on all of that? As we got parents of young kids that are doing it today, any advice or wisdom you might share?
Yeah, I would say just also another thing that kind of helped me is just traveling. Like I know like financially I've been lucky just with my parents and everything. And I know it's hard for parents too, just for kids traveling or whatever it is. But just sometimes like there was a couple tournaments where we just had guys come with a family or whatever, stay with us or whatever it was. And I think that was a huge thing for me is just stay in a hotel with a buddy or whatever it is. There's 6 of us in a room. That got me ready for professional baseball because we're doing that. And I think my junior year, going into my senior year of high school, I think I stayed at home 12 days the whole entire summer. So it was just like that kind of helped me kind of just traveling and going out and getting seen. And I think that's another big thing. If you can play and you can go out and perform, you don't need to be paying all this money to go and do this thing. You're going to get seen. And I think that's another big thing. And like I said earlier, with the ranking stuff and everything, and just, I think it's all great on pen and paper, but you got to go out and prove yourself that you are that guy. And that was something for me. Like I was ranked that number 1, whatever, not prospect, but like high school prospect, I guess.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, all right, how can I make that true? And it's just the work that you got to put in, and it just little things. I think that you can have a ball on a wall and go outside and just do things. You don't have to have the nicest things. And so it's just those little things I think that really helped me, and I think helped other guys prepare for the next step.
I think you make a good point though. And just listening, a lot of what we talk about, right, is you didn't do all this at 8, 9, 10, 11 years old. You were talking how it more started when you were 13, 14. Am I correct on that?
Yeah. Like we did some of the tournaments, but with a lot of the stuff like 11, 10, 12.
It was more local.
It was all kind of local in Texas. And then we went to we did the one big tournament. I think we're 11 or 12 in Colorado. And then we did one at the end of the year when we're 12 or something. Like we would always be like, all right, we're excited for this, but we had to win tournaments around our local area to go to that tournament. So it was kind of like motivation. If we win these games, then we'll be able to, it was like our World Series type thing. And so,
yeah. Now you just pay and you can get
yeah.
Did you ever, in all that time, you said you started at 6, did you ever, take breaks? Did you ever wrestle with burnout? Any moments where it was like, man, I need to back off?
Yeah, I definitely not burnout, but I could just tell like my body was getting like, I don't know if it was just at that young age you're growing and everything. And so I had like some like arm issues or like the stuff with like my heels and stuff from growing. And I think that was a time that was almost like God saying, all right, take a little break here. And that was it was always like towards the end of the summer going into the next school year. And I knew that at that time, like it was almost kind of like football season was coming when it started to get a little bit colder. And so just kind of, we would do what was a good thing kind of coming up. We'd have like we'd have fall practices and then a couple fall tournaments that like, it was like kind of not like tryouts, but that would get us ready for the spring. And so we did that a little bit like when we were younger, and then spring started the tournaments, and we would go till I think maybe early June or whatever, and then have a little bit time off, and then have our big tournament was always like in August or whatever. So I think definitely you can get burnt out with just how much kids are playing nowadays, and just like your body can't use that. You're growing, you need to eat, sleep, and hydrate through it all. But then also like, it's just it's crazy just seeing the stuff. And like I said about social media earlier, that's a big thing with, all right, this kid's doing this. Oh, I got to go out and do more, or this type thing where you could use that for motivation, where you can do that on your own instead of having to go out and pay this money to play in this tournament or whatever it is.
Bobby, I mean, obviously people see you and they see how talented you are, but aside from playing games growing up, like when you were 12 or 13, how much did you work outside of games on your own on baseball? Like how much work did you put in every week?
Yeah, my dad always wanted me to do not only like just like he'd throw to me all the time. Like we'd just go to our high school, hit at the cage. Actually, we go to like a place, it was called Bob Moore's, the token and the machine. And just, that's pretty much, growing up, I never did a lesson. I just always had, like, I didn't ever really have a hitting coach or nothing until pretty much professional baseball, now that I think about it. And so it's just kind of like one of those things where I would just watch the game, kind of try to emulate guys like, all right, these guys are in the big leagues, like they're doing something right. And so it's just trying to just find that. And my dad always knew my swing and those type of things. So we like that type of stuff, but he always was like, grip strength was something huge for me that probably started. I never really lifted or anything until maybe middle high school years or whatever. But my dad would always get me like the rice bucket, the grip, the hand stuff. And I did that probably at 10, 11 years old, because it's not really going to affect your growth or whatever, this and that. And so that was something that I think I'm so glad he did that, because that's something that I've always had good grip strength and things. And so, but that stuff, and then just always trying to keep my arm in good shape, like long tossing, arm care. And like I said, I call my dad my cheat sheet. So he knew all the stuff I needed to do with the Job work and that type of stuff. So like those little, like it was little things that kind of, I think that it slowly made me kind of who I am today.
I'm going baseball specific on one question now, because I talked to, Mark DeRosa, Brian McCann. They both got boys playing and, getting to that age now, high level tournaments. And we talk all the time. And I think, the biggest problem in baseball, I think they're facing is going to be arm problems for guys. And you're not that far removed from some of those tournaments, 16, 17, 18. Is that something that you saw and kind of troubled you a little bit, is the amount of just these guys blowing out?
Oh yeah, 100%. Like me and my dad talk about this all the time. Like the guys that were dudes, like the pitchers that were 14, 15, 16, now they're done playing baseball. Like you don't see those guys. Those are the guys that just had the good mechanics. They're not throwing real hard. They're just doing their work, doing their stuff. They got, and then bigger kids and that type of stuff. But then the guys that were like, all right, they're 90 miles per hour, 15, this and that, like we're like, all right, where'd that guy end up? Or whatever it was, the guys that were big, strong at 10, 11, 12, where'd those guys end up? They didn't really make it past that next level. Yeah, they went to college or whatever. So that me and my dad always get like kind of going, talking about whatever happened to this guy that we played. And it's like, we don't know where he's at. Like we haven't heard from him, but it's those guys that were like, man, he was like a good player, but then he kind of made his growth as he got older. And so I think that's something to be kind of looking at. And then my dad's close with a guy that does a lot of the Tommy John surgeries. And he said the high school level and younger is crazy, the amount of surgeries that they do nowadays.
Yeah, I saw James Andrews 2 years ago, and I've told this on here at the playoffs, and he told me that he did Tommy John on two 12-year-olds, man. Yeah. And I was like,
it's
sick.
It's not only now like those young guys, but it's the guys that are getting their second one. And it's just like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So I want to ask another baseball question, but more on the hitting side. I'd like to know kind of as you grew up and developed and you worked with your dad, what your approach to hitting was in developing, because today, launch angle and exit velocity and all those metrics are being focused on. Don't worry about strikeouts, hit bombs, which you hit a lot of bombs, but that doesn't seem to be your approach.
No, you won the batting title.
Yeah,
you still
right.
gotta be able to hit.
So what was your approach? What did your dad have you doing from an approach standpoint?
Yeah, I was always an aggressive hitter growing up. Like I swung a lot, but I also hated striking out. Like that was something like I struck out. I was like almost in tears after. Like that's just something. So I was always just trying to put the ball in play and make something happen, because at those ages, like they're not going to remember you for your stats. They're not going to do anything. It's just like, all right, you can put the ball in play, hit the ball hard. That was always something that like kind of pretty cliche, but just hit the ball hard and see what happens. And I got to learn that at a young age. And just with my dad always throwing to me, like we always would kind of like, he'd get closer and closer and just always trying to get more velocity or whatever it was, just try to make it harder in the cage than it was in the game. So then when I get out there, it's like, oh, this is not easy, but it just makes it a little bit easier. And so and then he always would tell me, just use the whole field. Look what Pedroia is doing. He's using that right hole. That was kind of my guy growing up. And so just use the whole field and just hit the ball hard was really like, and ultimately like I was always a smaller guy. And so I started to hit homers and this and that. And I think it just became from just letting the pitcher provide the power and not trying to overswing and just trying to hit the ball hard and just whatever else. Like you can't really control where you hit it. You can't control the outcome. So it just comes down to like going up there and just see the ball, hit ball. And it sounds easy as that, but like, and I was never really a big like mechanical stuff growing up, like, and that type of things. And so I think because when that starts happening, the wheels start spinning in the head and you can't do that in the box, especially at a young age, because who knows what your brain's thinking at that time. There's a squirrel running around, whatever it is. Like, it's just crazy, all that stuff. And so just trying to simplify things at a young age. And so that's kind of what helped me.
You know, one of the things we talk about a lot, one of our pillars, we have 5 pillars on Pure Athlete, and one's character. And like I've told you, when I've talked to JJ Dayton, a lot of the other guys, George just loves you. Now, he says it in different ways that only George can say it. That's not meant for here, but he does love you. You know what? Why can you talk on here? Look, you've done everything, man. You've won second NAIL MVP. You've won batting titles. You've got the big deal. Why is character still so important for you? Why should it be important for kids as they grow?
Yeah, it's kind of like I was saying earlier. Like, guys aren't going to remember you for the stats on your baseball card. They might, but it just comes down to like how good of a teammate you are, what makes you a leader, a silent leader, whatever it is. And it just goes more than just the game of baseball. And so the game of baseball will always be played after you're done. It's not evolving around me. It's not evolving around anyone. It's always going to be played. So once you're done, how you're going to leave your mark type thing. It's just something that whoever, you never know, like if someone's having a bad day, whatever it is, just try to be best teammate you possibly can be. Just try to be the best person you can be, and then just go out there and play the game the right way, enjoy it. And the game doesn't owe you anything, so there's no point of trying to be bigger than it. And so that's kind of something that was always instilled in me, like I was saying earlier, just taught to try to play the game the right way at a young age. And that was something that kind of my mom would say, just always be humble and kind. And so it was really kind of special just getting that.
Smart lady.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we ought to take now to say, because we try to bring people on here that are role models for our kids. And so, you know, your humility and those things in your character that you guys both were just talking about, they really come forth, and we just really appreciate you setting a good example for the younger kids.
Thank you.
You know, Bobby, I got 2 more questions, man. We'll let you go. First one is more baseball related. What I love is you've had all these offensive numbers. You have all this speed, but you know, you struggled a little bit defensively and talked about wanting to get better. And I think that's so great. What were a couple of things that you did to help yourself get better defensively?
Yeah, it started off just with like figuring out why am I bad? Like, why am I the numbers, whatever.
Yeah.
So
Don't say bad. You weren't bad. Why?
Yeah. But then it's just like, all right, so what can I work? Because everyone, I feel like when you go into an off season or you go whatever, all right, you want to get stronger, you want to work on your swing. And then it's like, all right, I need to work on defensively. Like, I want to get better. I want to help the team. That's a way that I can help the team win. I want to use my 5 tools. And so just kind of coming into the off season after my first year, it's like, all right, what do I need to get better? All right, it's my first step to my left. I need to get better at that, my forehand. And so it's like, all right, I got to incorporate little drills in my training where that will help. And then it's get out to spring training or kind of do more defensive stuff in the off season to kind of help that. And so it's just like, all right, I always wanted to win the Gold Glove. That was something that like I took pride in my defense growing up and everything. And so it's just kind of, all right, what do I need to do? And then it's like, I felt like my first year, I was almost overthinking it too much. Like I was saying earlier, like I was doing too much to try to, like before a game or whatever it was. And then so at going into my second year, it's like, all right, I need to slow down, simplify it. Cause I felt like I did that offensively earlier. And then, all right, now I need to do that defensively, simplify it, slow it down, make the plays I need to make the crazy plays just kind of happen naturally. You don't really think about it. And then, so how can I make those routine plays where I don't got to think about it? And so it's just kind of slowing down the game. Like I said earlier, just taking things one pitch at a time, one breath at a time. And something that I put on my glove and just says like, breathe. And so, cause you play a season, there's 20,000 plus pitches. And as an infielder, I think you get around maybe 400. So how can you be locked in for those 19,600 other pitches or whatever it is,
yeah,
the number is. And so it's just trying to make sure you're locked in for every pitch. And I feel like at times it's like, all right, sped up the game or whatever it was. And I think those little things helped. And then having our defensive coaches doing drills for me just to help, and then doing it in the off season, I think that was something that really helped me kind of, and I still think there's even more to, like, you got to keep improving each and every year, each and every day. And so I still think that there's a lot more to kind of improve.
That's awesome, man. And my last question for you, man, you've talked a lot to the kids about different stuff, and I'm sure you played with a lot of guys that, you know, didn't become Bobby Witt, right? Or didn't make it to college and play. But what's your advice to the parents listening to this, as you've done all these travel ball tournaments and maybe even take yourself out of your shoes for a minute and pretend you're maybe your buddies who didn't make it but have great relationships with their parents. What's your advice to parents as they watch their girls or boys go through their journey?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just make sure they're playing. Like, I think that's the biggest thing. Like, a lot of people, I feel like they see like, oh, there's this team, they got all these commits, we want my kid on that team, even if he's not playing. But he's not playing, you're paying all this money, and then it's just like, it's kind of like you almost wasted time, wasted years. And I think it goes to college now, just with like, oh, this big college, this and that, and like you get recruited that are talking you up like this, and then you're not playing until you're a junior in college, and so that's like 2 years like wasted. Like, just make sure you're I think it's just the biggest thing is just going out and play and enjoying. Like, if you're going out and playing, having fun, that's the biggest part. And then you're going to get seen. And then that's when the scholarships start, whatever. And then the same thing to college, like I was saying. So I think it's just really just make sure you're enjoying this, because like I said, those guys, they miss it. And they didn't, I feel like at times they almost took it too serious with the recruiting process, with the summer showcases where they forgot to just go out and enjoy playing baseball and playing the game, meeting their friends and enjoying it all.
It's got to be fun.
Amen, man. We've had Tony Dungy on, and he always said, he told his guys, fundamentals, the first 3 words are fun, man. And if you don't, and I'll tell you this, we know nobody has more fun playing than you right now, man. And I know it's a busy time for you. It's the off season. I know you're hunting. I know you're getting ready to get married, man, but we do appreciate, like Britt said, and I'll second that, the role model you are.
Yep.
And we're going to have a lot of fun watching for years to come, man.
Thank
Absolutely.
you. Thank you guys for having me.